Please welcome everybody to another Digital Dungeon Master podcast. I'm David, your host, and tonight my special guest is Matt Finch. He is from Fraud God Games, and we're going to talk all about their Kickstarter, Swords and Wizardry. We're going to talk all kinds of RPG stuff tonight. So, thanks, Matt, for coming on. Totally appreciate it. It's nice to have you on the show. All right, so we're going to get right into it. So, how did you get into this beautiful hobby that we love, the RPG hobby, and how did that come about?
Well, I mean, it was sort of right at the beginning of D&D, or almost at the beginning of D&D. I'm one of the people that started playing with the very first basic set, the Holmes basic
The
set,
Holmes.
which, yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's the face-on dragon looking through the archway at the people, and so that, and
With the
it was
paper
actually because,
chits that you
yeah,
could put
well,
in a
no,
bag and pull up.
I was in there early, man. I had dice in mine before they ran out of them.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I was reading an article that they were totally out of dice when the game first came out. There was none. That's why they put the paper chits in there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there some of them went out with dice and some went out with chits. I don't know if it was where I was or what happened, but I got dice. But yeah, I mean, doing a little bit of Napoleonic wargaming, and I was like 10, so I had like 10 minis, but
Yeah.
doing the Napoleonics, and because of that, I was in hobby stores, and that's where I ran across first the Monster Manual, which was really cool. But I figured it was part of a war game or something like that I wasn't familiar with, because
Yeah.
there was big Lord of the Rings stuff going on at that point. And then eventually I saw, okay, here's a box, and you can figure out that a box is a game when you're 10. So
Yeah.
it kind of went from there.
That's awesome. So, was this something that you had played with your friends, or was this something that you had already been going to the game store and this is just like some new item that you had seen then, right?
It was a new item that I'd seen, but as it turned out, my friend Jim also got a hold of one, and then so we were just over at his house, and we decided we'd start playing, and that's but we did, we taught ourselves to play. It wasn't large groups. It was 2 people gaming. So there was always a DMPC in there as well, and that's we must have run B1 in Search of the Unknown was the module that came with it, and we must have, and you could, and for anyone who doesn't know it, it was an introductory module, so you actually filled in the monsters that were going to be there, and I can't remember whether
Yeah.
there were any random tables to do that with. I think there were.
25. Yeah, there were. Yeah, that's same thing with us. 25. They want you to have 25 loot parcels, 25 encounters, and here's the dungeon that's the 2 levels of the dungeon that are already done for you. It was all. It's like one of the few modules that's actually set up like that.
Yeah, yeah, and we must have played that, God, 20, 30 times,
Yeah.
because you just go right through again. So,
Yeah. Yeah, just don't run into the room with the young dragon in it though. That's the bad roll.
but one of the funny things too is that every dungeon that everybody ever designed, for their home use for the next 2 or 3 years had a magic mouth, somewhere in the doorway, because it's one of the really cool things about that dungeon is
Yeah.
there's a magic mouth that
Yep.
gives you warnings if you go to this place, and there are some dead people right around the magic mouth too. So it's really it's great atmosphere
That's
for a
awesome.
module too.
So, after playing, I'm sure you played for quite a few years. I started playing in 1984 actually, and right around the time of the D&D cartoon and stuff like that. And so, when did you start getting into creating content, publishing content, and what was the first company that you had done work for and stuff?
Well, I started by writing the retro clone Osric together with Stuart Marshall, and that was just 2 guys writing a thing and then putting it out as a free PDF. And that was, a clone of first edition Advanced D&D. And then I later did Swords and Wizardry, which is in 2008, and that also was just me doing that. Although with that one, I was actually selling it, because the idea was that um, Osric had it was getting clearer watching things that people have a lot more interest in a game if there's a company behind it that's doing
Yeah.
a thing, and it makes no logical sense, but just as a psychological matter, people like to have
Yeah.
a visible sort of group behind something. And
Yeah.
so I did that as a company. Um, and and then in 2008 we set up Frog God Games, and that was with the Necromancer Games intellectual property, and it was with some stuff that Greg Vaughn had written at the same time, a book called Slumbering Czar, and then I put in Swords and Wizardry, and we just took it from there going forward. So that was the first time I was actually with a real company. And of course, when you say company to refer
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
Frog God Games back in that day, you're talking about something that's, light years ahead of me, tapping away on the keyboard and doing the layout in Microsoft Word and stuff. But it
Yeah.
was still, very, very, very small, little deal.
I've been keeping an eye on Frog God Games, and man, you guys have grown so much. I mean, you support quite a few games now. I know that you guys have done some 3.5 stuff, and I know that we have a bunch of Savage World stuff that you guys have done, and it's nice to see a company that doesn't have all their eggs in one basket, and where there's a variety of games to choose from, because it's only gonna help the company to where it's gonna draw in more of an audience, and I think that's a good thing. So what all do you guys have going on over there at Frog God Games? What are all the games that you guys support now and put content out for?
Well, it's not a super broad
Hmm.
variety. We, for the most part, Pathfinder was our largest audience right at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then obviously there's been tectonic shifts in the whole Pathfinder world with the new edition coming out and so on.
Yeah.
We still do versions of most of what we do for first edition Pathfinder, even though it's no longer our main product line. We've got a lot of fans who've been loyal for years and years. We've got a campaign that they've been building up their stuff on, so we continue to sort of do the Pathfinder 1E.
Yeah.
So that's probably the smallest, or about maybe equal to Swords and Wizardry. Swords and Wizardry being a retro clone of original D&D, and that's again been part of our line since 2010 when we started. So lots of Swords and Wizardry fans, and then the probably the largest group is what you would expect. It's for the fifth edition publishing,
Hmm.
fifth edition D&D that we
Yeah.
do, um, and we're looking at probably at some point in the future doing some stuff for Call of Cthulhu, and that's still
Oh, nice.
in the planning phases. Um, and that's really pretty much it, except for um, there are a lot of we also come out with some generic products that are useful for fantasy in
Mhm.
general kind of thing. So
That's cool.
that's about it.
So, have you noticed that there's been, Pathfinder 2 is still fairly new. I mean, it came out at Gen Con last August. Have you seen that there's traction with, Pathfinder 2 gaining some momentum? And is there a request for, Pathfinder 2 content from you guys?
um I in my experience, it's not very large.
Hmm.
I don't know what the numbers look like on Pathfinder
Yeah.
2 in general. We've got a lot. I mean, we do have more people who are looking for stuff for Pathfinder 1 than we do who are looking for stuff for Pathfinder 2.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sound like I'm saying anything about Paizo's.
Yeah.
It's everyone's got a relatively um, insular niche. I mean, our customer base is almost by definition people who've been buying stuff for a long time for Pathfinder 1.
Yeah.
And so I think they're going to be predisposed out of that group of people to have more people who want to stick with Pathfinder 1 than people who are, coming in relatively new and want to go to Pathfinder 2. So,
Yeah. I think there was a huge, I don't want to say outcry, but I know a lot of the Pathfinder 1 folks were shocked that they were, putting out a new version of Pathfinder, especially, after all the years of investing into the subscriptions and stuff that they have. So I have a couple of viewers that are, and actually a couple of players of mine that are big Pathfinder first edition fans, and I think they've been a little skeptical on kind of jumping onto the whole Pathfinder 2 thing. So I was just kind of wondering if, from a from a third party perspective, has there been a lot of requests for that? So,
Yeah, no,
but
from a third party perspective, I would say it's relatively small,
yeah,
the turnover. So
gotcha. So, you mentioned swords and wizardry, and you guys have a Kickstarter out now, which is actually doing really well. I've put the link into the live chat, and then I'll also put links to the Kickstarter. I know you guys have 5 days to go, and I'll also put links into the description here on YouTube. So, talk to us a little bit about swords and wizardry. You mentioned that it was sort of like an old school D&D feel. Now, is that like a basic type of Beck-Me feel, or is that something like more of a first or second edition advanced?
it's actually even before that. It's the
Ooh,
original. So it would be 0E
oh,
basically.
gotcha. The old
Um,
small paperbacks.
exactly. That's what
Yeah.
it is. It's the small booklets, and it's as the name suggests, it's a complete version of it. So it's the three booklets that came in the box itself. There were four supplements. There were various articles in the Strategic Review and in the Dragon magazine, and we sort of pulled all of that together, at least all of it that we could do without violating copyright law.
Hmm.
So there are a couple of things that are missing, like there's no illusionist class because the
Hmm.
illusionist was done later on in a completely different form. And so where you're allowed to use it via the OGL,
Yeah.
that doesn't allow you to go back and duplicate something that was completely different. Um, so, but so anyway, so it's all collected together into a more modern presentation. The original D&D books, were relatively poorly organized. Um, and so it's a snapshot right at the moment before things turn into first edition advanced D&D. And it's a game with pretty much the same scope as advanced D&D. Oddly, a lot of people don't, including me, didn't quite really think about it that way until I looked at the whole thing together and was like, wow, this is actually, covers the same kind of ground that first edition advanced D&D did. So
Yeah.
it's not back me. Um, there are retro clones for virtually every version of D&D that's ever been published. So there are clones of Back Me, there are clones of
Yeah.
BX, there are clones of the home set. Obviously, the largest clones out there are I guess Osric is it's probably the two that I was involved in, Osric and Swords and Wizardry. But
Yeah.
since Osric was the first, and so that there's that, and it got a lot of traction over a couple of years when it was the only thing out there that did that. And then Swords and Wizardry just because it's got Frog God's backing behind it. But there are
Yeah.
lots and lots and lots of them. Any version of D&D you ever want to play, there's going to be a retro clone out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's good that they've been reorganized because D&D was pretty unorganized, especially with Beckme until the Rule Cyclopedia came out, in the early '90s. So yeah, definitely I know exactly what you're, and I'm going through the same thing right now with kind of reorganizing Talislanta. The first, I don't know if you've ever heard of Talislanta,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
but
oh yeah.
I love Talislanta as well, and the first and second edition they're pretty much the same thing, but the game itself is so unorganized, but yet it's such a beautiful game.
Yeah.
So I'm in the process of trying to get everything because there's so many different spots throughout both books that are you get this at level 1 character creation and it should, so I'm literally having to go word for word through each section and reorganizing everything. So but but having a nice organized game, and I saw your guys' Kickstarter on the swords and wizardry, and it looks beautiful. I mean, you get a box set, multiple books, there's all kinds of goals and rewards that you're going to get. And so when you're talking about the old classic paperbacks, those weren't very big books, and then there's like the Blackmore book and the deities and demigods and stuff. So this is all the stuff that you're basically expand. So is this the content that I know that you can't IP stuff you can't put in there, but is this also being expanded upon as well, so, to give more? So it's basically just the
I mean, the
original.
goal. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a game designer.
Yeah.
I'm a rewriter, and I'm
Hmm.
an attorney, and
Yeah.
so if we put any of my house rules in there, other than it was something for a legal reason, and there are
Hmm.
some of those, like there's a single saving throw thing, and that you use bonuses. There are
Yeah.
things in there. Um, that could be there. I mean, they're not house rules, but what they are is they are legal issues that were there.
Hmm.
Um, but if I changed it, then it wouldn't be a clone of original D&D anymore. It would
Yeah.
be, My Fantasy Heartbreaker, largely based upon original D&D. So no, we
Yeah.
are going to do supplements after the box set comes out, and it's
Very
the first
nice.
time I've ever agreed to do this. But as long as we're clearly making very clear that these are not official changes to the rules or
Yeah.
official supplements, but presenting them as being, here are some things that you can do if you want to, that will
Yeah.
give you a different sort of effect in play, and then and here's what that would be, and to sort of work it through like that. So
That's good. I like that you're keeping to the true original books. That's nice, and I think I think it would be also be nice to bring the game into like the modern day, and have like you were saying, if you want to adjust your game with optional
right.
rules and stuff. I think that's a beautiful format. So yeah, that's a good thing. But I was checking out the Kickstarter and it looks wonderful. I mean, you get, 4 books in a box set. You get dice, you get character sheets. What's that? A DM screen as well, or
Yeah, it's two. It's you get the box set, and then we've got an extras set, and so there are or were, because I'm not sure if we're sold out of the collector boxes, but there were basically two different
there's
wraps
two
on them.
left.
Are
Two
there?
left,
Okay,
and
two
it's
left.
only.
Everyone.
I mean, $5 more for the collector's edition is like wow,
Well, but
$5.
here's
That's
the
it.
thing:
Yeah.
the collector's edition it has no different contents
Uh
in the
huh.
box.
Yeah.
And it looks like the old boxes because it's got that sort of wood grainy look on
Yeah.
the outside box, and a lot of people really love the retro art, and it's got a nice piece of retro art. But there are a lot of people who are looking at it and saying, no, I like the more modern look on the regular one as well. The only
Yeah.
real difference there is that we're restricting the collector boxes. We're only going to make 500 of them, so we'll
I
have
gotcha.
500 plus whatever the print overrun is.
Yeah.
So up to 10%. So maybe there's going to be 550 of them. And so
Uh,
that scarcity is in collectors like that. You've got the people who like the retro look that looks there, but we had to. That's one of the things. Every time you do a Kickstarter, there's something that you're like, how did we could have explained that better, and there was enormous confusion about well, what's in these collector boxes, same
yeah.
stuff. Well, why are they collector boxes? Because because it's a retro box. There's
Yeah.
there's older people who play the game who like the way that the thing looks because it's nostalgia, so it's a
Yeah.
collector. So
It's a beautiful deal. So are they, standard regular size books, or are they going to be the smaller books, sort of like as you're talking about retro, as like the old basic pre-basic D&D books are?
yeah, I'm
So
looking to see if I have a box of the right size. It's they're digest size books, so which
awesome.
I think it starts at 6x9, and then there's the trim to make it
Yeah.
work out. So it's digest size books, digest size box. The DM screen will fold up and go into the box. That's from the extras pack. It's one of the quite low but very long screens, which I've discovered that I like more than the
Yeah.
taller
So do I.
ones. More
Because you
okay.
always knock the damn tall screens over when you're reaching over.
And somebody and you're like, okay, so roll a die, and the player manages to get it right close to the screen, so you have to like stand up, look down over the
Then
top
you
of the
knock
screen.
it over. That's when you knock it over.
That's right. And then you knock the screen over onto the top of the die, and the player was like, well, that was a 20. And,
Yeah. You're like, whatever.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and they don't have to be that tall. It's so much easier to be able to see over the top of it. So I like, so that's the way
Yeah.
we did it. And it also is very convenient because we're getting it at a particular size where it'll fold into the box, and you can keep it in the box, as I understand it.
Yeah. It looks like
Still not 100% sure I understand all of the geometry that's involved with the print sizes. When you start getting quotes for this stuff, you're like,
yeah, and different mock-ups, and then things start getting confusing, and yeah. Yeah, so it looks like
because when you're like, I could do, because you get this raft of different things. I mean, we were like, well, we could have dice in it, we could have character sheets in it. We've got these, this neat idea of a little card that has a picture on one side, and it's got that character classes, relevant tables and things
Oh
on the
yeah,
back. We could put those in there. Hey, we could get
yeah,
little plastic stands to put on those. We could put them in a little tuck box. And then you got to figure out, how do we assemble this into the amount of money that we can actually afford to put in the box, then make
yeah,
sure that the box is the right size, that we're going to be able to A, ship it, and B, afford it, and
yeah,
still have room for stuff to go on top of it. And
yeah.
it's so
And
complicated trying to put one of these
every
things.
every goal that comes out, that's just more money you have to spend for every single backer that has a physical box set. So a lot of
Well, we
I've
didn't
seen
do
a
that. We didn't do that for most of the Kickstarter. What we did for most of the Kickstarter was just digital
digital.
goals.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
Because you can tank a Kickstarter
They-
by over promising and then
yeah,
having any sort of little problem go on, and problems come in with material objects.
yeah.
When you've got suppliers, and many Kickstarters have been killed by that. We did at the very end, and I don't know if those goals have been achieved yet. Probably not, but we are going to put some additional physical pages into the extras pack that have useful tables in them. And if we get up to a certain size, those pages become a little 16-page booklet of ready reference tables. But that's
Awesome.
the only real physical goal that we did. And that's looking back. I think the plan here is that we're going to be looking back to the sort of Judges Guild ready reference sheets. I don't
Hmm.
know if you've ever seen those.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
okay, so just little things like here are some types of castles. Whichever the good
Yeah.
ones are that make the best sense to put in there. Um, then we'll do that. We've also thought about doing some stuff like you know
Old Judges Guild magazines, man. I haven't heard that in reference in so many years. I have a
oh
couple
yeah.
of them still, but yeah, but it's awesome, man. Yeah, keeping it digital is definitely a smart thing because like you mentioned, you can tank a Kickstarter quick, and I've read a couple of stories where these companies just kept promising and promising more stuff, and then they're like, oh man, so they have to start pulling money out of the company itself, and then it ends up turning out bad, and so yeah,
Yeah, no, it's a really, it makes sense. You can do it if you've planned it out ahead of time, but
yeah,
we've got an absolute hard and fast rule. We don't decide mid Kickstarter that we're going to throw in an additional physical stretch goal. You just
yeah,
haven't had time to think. You haven't had time to think about it.
yeah, yeah.
It's dangerous.
And it's doing stuff like that could cause the tank right there just by doing, oh, things are going great. Let's just go ahead and start putting more. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good thing. So do you guys have any other, with Frog God Games, do you have any other projects coming up that you can talk about, or something that may be going on Kickstarter in the future? Or
Well, let's see. In the immediate future, I believe it's our next Kickstarter, is one called Tekka Show, I think is the way that it's pronounced. It's a Mesoamerican type of area that's in the Lost Lands. And so I think we're doing that sort of a little more detail on that area of the campaign. There are some adventures, and that's being written by Tom Knaus, who's one of the writers that's been with us for a long time, really good
oh,
writer. Um, and So there's that. We're also running a fair number of Indiegogos, because what we do with Indiegogos, and it has to do with the economics of publishing soft covers,
yeah,
but we print very small runs of soft cover modules of things. And then you get a free PDF. You get a free PDF with anything that you get from Frog God. But the thing about these is that they're super high quality. They're like 100-pound paper.
oh
I'm not a
wow,
paper expert, but it's very good
that's like
paper.
almost a card stock, almost something that thick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
that's pretty
much. I mean,
thick. Yeah,
your regular piece of typing paper is 60 pounds. So
yeah,
and it's got, and because of that, and that's an issue because you can't see stuff through from the other side where it's printed. And again, I don't know much about the printing side of it, but they're very high quality soft covers. But then we don't print a whole lot of them to save an inventory. They're gone very shortly after the
yeah,
thing, because soft covers, even in a well climate controlled warehouse, they have a limited lifespan. Eventually you're going to have stuff like pages starting to curl, and on our bookshelves it's probably not a big deal, but when you're selling it to someone who's about to get it for the first time, that's
yeah,
going to come across as damage.
yeah. That's true. So what are your favorite projects that you've worked on throughout the years?
Well, I think one of my favorites is a book called Tome of Adventure Design, and because I'm an inveterate table maker. I think of something and as I'm writing an adventure or whatever it is, I start writing down the ideas for it, and then I've got a few ideas, and then I'm like, well, okay, I could, if I had this, I could have this. Which one do I like best? And eventually, it turns into about a quarter of a table, and so I had a stack about this tall of quarter of a table notes,
Yeah.
and and went back in and turned them into actual, okay, well, let's finish this off, and you'll have a table. And then that came out as a book, and it's also got a little bit of adventure design theory in it. It's not designed to roll up something in 10 seconds. The approach that I took was, because it was the way I was using it at the time, because I always would refer to those. It's for when you've got time and you're trying to write something really good, and you're trying to get stuff that's really different.
Yeah.
And in any table that is going to generate maximum creativity, it's also going to generate maximum crap. It's true.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So there's that aspect in it. Now a lot of them are heuristic tables. So you may get something that's a small set, but it leads to another small set, leads to another small set, and that minimizes the number of results that you get that just make absolutely no useful sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it's got all of the different things in there. So that, I think that was the one I had the most fun with, because it was grappling with the organizational issue of how do you get these very complicated results with a minimum of confusion on the part of someone who's actually using them.
Yeah, but this old school grognards that have been playing since the late 70s and early 80s. I mean, basic D&D, AD&D first edition, second, it was all about tables, man. I mean, tables were just throughout every single book, and so I can relate to that, because I use Fantasy Grounds. In fact, I work for Fantasy Grounds, and building tables and complex tables, where you can take 5 and 10 tables, merge them into one, and do 10 rolls at one time. Oh man, I'm all about that. I love randomness and tables, so.
I'm not sure whether that's really a characteristic of all gamers, but
yeah,
most of the ones I've met, you start talking about a good table. Everyone's got a favorite book of tables. I like what was the ultimate book of tables that I think it was Paizo did. I like this book. I like Tome of Adventure Design. You remember that issue of the Dragon magazine that had the tables on such and such?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Dragon magazine. I remember Unearthed Arcana, the original Unearthed Arcana, was just jam-packed full of tables. Rules Cyclopedia, all of the beginner, the basic, expert, companion, all those box sets were just full of tables, and But I've met some people. I've talked to a couple of other folks at Stream. I've talked to them, and they just despise tables.
Really? Okay, so there's the counterexample.
Yeah, exactly. But I love tables, and most of the players that I've had, I'll let them roll in tables, so they're damned by their own rolls. So even for random encounters and stuff, I'm like, well, let's see. There's a green dragon on this. Yeah, exactly. There's a D20. There's a green dragon on here. I'm gonna let you roll it. So whenever you roll a green dragon and you get killed, you can't blame me for it. So
I have no responsibility here, guys. It's just you roll the green dragon, I'll do the green dragon. If you rolled a pixie, there you'd be.
So are you running any games right now? Do you have any current games that you're running or you're playing in?
Not at my house, and the online games I was running, I took a break on because when they killed Google Hangouts, that was a really easy way of not having to use any streaming software, because you could just get on Google Hangout. You could get on YouTube and say, okay, just run it from this Google Hangout, and then it would go. And it would give you a link ahead of time so that you could tell people where it was going to be, and it's way more of a hassle now. So I put that on hold for a bit. I'm running all kinds of convention games, though.
Awesome.
The games I run they're called Mithras Tower. There are a lot of other DMs who play the same one, and what it is it's a mega dungeon crawl in which you get to keep your gold, you keep your equipment, you keep your levels into the next one that you show up for.
Awesome.
And so you're actually able to level up in what's it's slower moving than gaming every week. Having to game
but people love that investiture, though. You know what I mean? When you can go to one convention and go to another and bring your character. Oh man, Yeah, people love that.
That's one of the things. What's one of the things I don't like about convention games is just the aspect of it where you're walking away from the table at the end of the game and you're never going to see this character again. So you're not that invested in it. There's other great things about convention games, but I always sort of missed that feeling of really being attached to a character, and this was a way of having that work. So the next convention I'm going to is GaryCon. Although I signed up too late for that one to have on-grid games. We added me to our roster just like last weekend. So I'm going to run probably off-grid games there.
That's cool. How many conventions a year are you doing? Or are you just doing like the convention season? Or
I think it's around 6 that I do. I do North Texas RPG Con, Reaper Con, Gamehole Con, GaryCon, Total Con, Houston Games Expo, and I'm probably forgetting one, but it's in that range from 5 to 7 each year, depending.
Well, you mentioned North Texas. I'm in Texas as well. I'm in El Paso, and we have El Paso Con.
I'm in Houston, so
Oh yeah, you're in Hurricane Allen. you're in Hurricane Allen. You can have that. I moved to El Paso in January 2018 from Florida. I lived in Central Florida, and I just got tired of being, lived there for 40 years and probably went through 40, 50 hurricanes in that time, and I was just like, well, I want to move to Texas, and I was originally looking at Houston and Dallas, but I'm like, well, that's still in the hurricane path. Dallas not as bad; they'll get a lot of rain, but so I said, let's go all the way out west. So, but I've been out here for 2 years, and I love it. We have El Paso Con.
Anybody who's not familiar with Texas, both of us talking about Texas.
Yeah.
We're about 800
miles apart. Yeah, about a third of the United States. So, it was brutal because when I sold my house and had an estate sale, and I just packed up my car and had a midlife crisis. My son turned 23. He moved out, and I said, you know what? It's time for me to do what I wanted to do. I didn't even know where I was going to live, but I knew I was going to live in Texas. So when I drove, when I first went over the Louisiana border from Louisiana to Texas, that first mile marker sign, it said El Paso 900. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm only halfway. So I still had another complete day just of driving across Texas, and it's just nothing but desert except for Houston, Katy, and San Antonio, and then everything else is just
and
absolute
got hills.
Yeah,
got the hills, but
yeah. But I like it here.
El Paso area is definitely desert area.
Oh, it definitely is, and but we've actually got snow 3 times this year, which is
really
amazing. Got it 3 times, yeah. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually have some grass growing actually in the front yard, which I've had dirt. My neighbor loves Mr. Torres across the street. He loves to mow his dirt every week. So, and you can see the lines from his mower. Like he's got these lines from the lawnmower.
Twin rooster tails going.
That's it. And I'm just like, he's out mowing his dirt again. But so you want to take a couple of questions from our live audience? If you guys out in the chat, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask away, and we'll get Matt your questions. And if you're going to be watching this on the YouTube channel as well, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll answer it as best as I can. So, but a couple of people said that the collector's boxes are now gone, and then they put smiley faces up there. So
we sold those 2 collector's boxes that you said that they had. I'm gonna get that. Yeah.
Yep. You say that, a couple people went over there and just snatched them up really quick. So yeah, that's good.
Gamers, fast reaction, know what you're going to do, apply your gold pieces well.
There's a couple people in chat saying that they're in Texas as well. So
who else from Texas?
Let's see. Benjabum is about 4 hours from us. So I guess he's probably in San Antonio-ish if he's...
Or Dallas.
Or Dallas.
If he's 4 hours from me, that's Dallas driving fast.
Or San Antonio fast for me.
That's about San Antonio, because Austin's not that far away from here.
Alamo City. So there you go. Keep on the Borderlands. He's in Alamo City as well. So Keep on the Borderlands. He's an old grognard too. His Keep on the Borderlands is his name. So obviously he's a grognard. So he was saying that the old Judges Guild stuff was great. And I actually have a couple of those magazines still. Those old school. It had everything in it for all games, no matter if it was, D&D or Talislanta or Star Frontiers. It was those books were really cool. Oh, actually, Benjamin's in New Mexico, so he's actually closer to me. So
yeah.
So there's a question here. You have 5th edition content already. So is all of your content going to be basically converted to D&D 5th edition? Because you guys were definitely into 3.5 and you're still putting 3.5 content out. So is the 3.5 content converted to 5th edition?
Yes, we're doing that on a rolling basis. There is so much original Necromancer content out there that guaranteed we will not get it all converted over before there's a new edition of D&D. And in fact, and that that happened with Pathfinder, and it's just there's too much stuff to ever get it all out there. But yes, we may be an edition behind for some of you.
But I think you're in good shape, though. I don't see D&D 5th edition going away for anytime soon.
It would be dumb. I mean,
I think it'll have a 2E lifespan. I'm expecting a 2E type of lifespan, but
yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they are working on it somewhere just so that they have something in case for some reason they absolutely need to start working on it. But I don't think it would make any sense for them given the market that they've achieved at this point.
It's more popular. It's done nothing but help the entire industry, and also with you mentioned Kickstarter and the Indiegogo. I mean, that's done nothing but create a renaissance for, games where you don't have to rely on big, massive publishing houses and stuff, which is, gotta love technology, man. Gotta love the internet. So, yeah.
Yeah, because the technology definitely kept pace with that. It's a lot easier for somebody to, publish something, even back in the days when you were running a mimeograph machine.
Yeah.
The kind of stuff you can come out with now just as one person working is phenomenal.
Photoshop's awesome. Yeah.
Print on demand and end up getting an actual book out of it. It's like magic.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, like I said, technology has just made it so much easier for, smaller companies to be able to get out there, get their products out there, and not have to, be just destroyed from, other larger companies just taking everything from them just so they can get their stuff out. So, yeah. And there's a couple of people that are talking about the tables from the Tome of Adventures. So, but all right. So it looks like we'll go ahead and we'll call it. And Matt, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been nice talking to you and
it's my pleasure.
Getting to meet you and talking about everything going on with Frog God Games and Swords and Wizardry, and we'll I'm definitely going to get back that Kickstarter. So because I'm an old school rule light type of guy, so
the collector boxes though, because you spoke first and your audience went and got it.
You know what I'll do? I'll keep refreshing it until someone cancels a pledge, and I'll hope someone cancels a pledge. So, all right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I wish you nothing but the best to you and Frog God, and we'll get you back on again later down the line when you got something else going on Kickstarter, and we'll get the word out. So
I appreciate it.
It's no problem. I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for hanging out, and thanks everybody for watching. We'll have this. If you guys have any questions, like I said, just put it in the comment section, and I'll answer it as best as if I can. And if I can, I'll see if Matt can get an answer for you as well. So thanks everybody for watching. Totally appreciate it. And until next time, happy gaming and stay safe. Bye, everybody.